Coming from the Caveman Studios in Buffalo, New York. Welcome to Caveman Corner with your host, Jeff.
Captain Caveman!
Thanks.
Click subscribe and the bell. Do it now!
We're here with one of my personal heroes. NCAA champion, Olympic champion, world champion, undefeated UFC fighter, Mr. Mark Schultz. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing good, Caveman. Thanks for having me. It's an honor. Thanks for having me, Ray. Thanks for inviting me, Ray.
Oh, no problem.
Man,
it's an honor to have you here, man.
When Ray said we were going to get you, dude, I was like, there's no way we're getting Mark Schultz. Dude, you must be talking about someone else. I can't believe, like, you're such a high-level wrestler, like an Olympic athlete. You were one of my heroes growing up, you and your brother. I can just imagine what your house was like growing up. We're going to get into that in a minute, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And, man, what's been going on since you fought last? That's the last time, like, probably our fans know about you, since you beat up poor Big Daddy Goodridge.
Oh, man. My life has taken so many twists and turns since then. It's unbelievable. You know, I got divorced, and I worked for a masonry contracting company for a while. I moved to Fresno and managed apartments. I moved to Oregon, and I did one thing I want to plug this. There's a documentary that was just made about me. It was produced by Dana White, and it's called Wrestling Demons, Mark Schultz's Ultimate Victory. It used to be like $10. You buy the membership on UFCFightPass.com, and then you could watch it. But now they're showing it on YouTube for free. And they called me one day and they said, Mark, this documentary has been nominated for an Emmy in 2023. I just couldn't believe it. And so I went back to the Emmys in New York, and we didn't win. We lost to Jeremy Lin. 38 at the Garden was the name of his documentary. And it's really weird coincidence because Jeremy Lin and I went to the same high school. And there was another coincidence that's just freaking me out. Another documentary was made called Bloodsport, and it was the Carlton Hasselrig story. Carlton Hasselrig is a really good friend of mine, and we were training partners. And 1985, 6, 7, he won the NCAA the next 3 years in a row. So I take full credit for all that. But then he went to NFL. He never played in the NFL, but he walked on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you know how wrestlers are. They're, incredible linemen. Nobody can get by him. And so he became a Pro Bowler. And then he had to quit. He had these terrible migraines and stuff. Getting CTE. And so he quit. And he did, I think, 5 or 6 MMA fights. And then he got when you get CTE, nobody was really, first of all, the NFL denied it for a long time. And then the doctors, he didn't even know what was wrong with him, and nobody was helping him because the NFL was denying it. So he went to all these doctors, and you can't tell if someone has CTE until they die. And then you have to take these very thin slices of the brain and look at it under a microscope. And he had CTE really bad, and he had these really horrible, and since the doctors couldn't help him, he started self-medicating, and I think he got arrested maybe once or twice or something. And, here's this friend of mine, and it looks like he's going crazy or he's turning into some criminal, but that's not what happened at all. He was trying to cure himself, and he wasn't getting any help, and he died. They say he died of liver disease, but he also had CTE really bad, and maybe he drank himself to death. I don't know what, but he died at the age of 55 back in I think 2015 or something. Anyway, his documentary just happened to be the same category in the same year as mine, which is really weird. Anyway, it was very bunch of coincidences. It was like a paranormal experience going back to the Emmy to see him. But yeah, that's what that's one thing I did. And I've been doing wrestling camps, wrestling clinics, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminars. I have my own style. I call it martial grappling because it sounds like my name, Mark Schultz. So I combine the takedowns and the conditioning of wrestling with the submission holds of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, I go around the country, I go around the world doing seminars like that.
So, are you black belt under Pedro Sauer?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have he has official lineage. There's not too many world-class wrestlers that deal with putting on the pajamas to get a black belt, man. And man, you're one of those guys. I can't imagine in a gi, dude.
Yeah, I'm much better without a gi. Believe me, like 1,000 times better without it. But I really love jiu-jitsu. I when I was a kid, I had a really bad lack of self-confidence, and I didn't really know what to do about it, and nobody back then, 1976, I think it was, nobody really knew what's the best martial art, and so I was a gymnast, and I was the Northern California state gymnastics champion, all around gymnastics for my age group, and when I was a sophomore in high school. But I was so I didn't have so confidence, so I thought one day, if I could just beat up everybody in the world, I could be happy with myself and live with myself. And so I started looking for the one true martial art, whatever that was. And we really didn't know. We were looking at Black Belt magazine and Bruce Lee movies, and here's Bruce Lee kicking the crap out of 20 guys at a time. And I was like, man, if he can beat 20 guys, if I know what he knows, maybe I could beat one guy, my brother Dave. Anyway, I started taking this, Tang Sudo, which was a Chuck Norris. They didn't have a Bruce Lee studio where I lived in Medford, Oregon. And so I took this Chuck Norris style martial art, Tang Sudo. And this is when I was a junior in high school. And for my 16th birthday, my brother came up to Northern Oregon. We lived together our whole lives until I became a rebellious teenager and started getting in fights with my dad. And I moved up to Oregon for one high school semester, and I started wrestling up in Oregon. But what happened was I was up here in Oregon, and Dave came up here for my birthday, and he said something really disrespectful. I don't even remember what it was, but I thought, okay, and now I'd only been taking Tang Sudo for 4 months, and so I thought, I'm going to show this guy who the real boss of the family is now with my 4 months of Tang Sudo. So we go out on the front lawn, and I took a swing at him. He double-legged me, got the mount, punched my face into a hamburger, and I was so humiliated. But as I slept in the car that night, because I couldn't face my family, I was like, screw Tang Sudo, I'm going out for the wrestling team. So I did. I went up for the wrestling team right away. And that's one thing I've told this story a bunch of times. I can keep telling it if you want. I didn't start my wrestling career until my junior year in high school, and I wasn't very successful. I was 4 wins and 6 losses my junior year, and then the coach kicked me off the team because I wasn't good enough. And so I go to the principal and I said, hey, this coach created a challenge match system to make the team, and I've won under his system, and then he kicks me off. That's not fair. And the principal agreed with me, and he forced the coach to put me back on the varsity. But because I went to the principal, it destroyed the relationship between me and that coach, and so I couldn't wrestle for him anymore. So I transferred back to Palo Alto, California, and my gymnastics coach in high school was also the wrestling coach at the high school. And over the summer, I gained 30 pounds. So I went from a 130-pound junior to a 159. Well, it fluctuates. California starts at 154 and goes up 5 pounds at state to 159. But I started there the next year, and my coach scheduled 3 tournaments that year. And the first one, the Cabrillo tournament, I broke my toe, couldn't go. Second one was the Al South tournament. I lost my first match and I was eliminated immediately. And then my third tournament, I took third at the Montevis Invitational. Then at the end of the year, I won the league, which was 9 schools. So the first time I won a high school tournament. And then that qualified me for the region. And I won that. That was 20 schools. And that qualified me for the Central Coast section, which was 90 schools. And I won that. And I got named the outstanding wrestler. And that qualified me for state. And so my first match, the guy that was the defending Central Coast section champion, Joe Guillory, he got beat his first round at state really bad. And I was like, man, these guys at state are really tough. But I had studied this Eastern Indian philosopher named Jiddu Krishnamurti. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh.
No. Anyway, I read his book, and he had this chapter on fear, and I thought if I could just learn how to live without fear, I would have this huge advantage. So I really studied him hard, and I kept my head on at state. And my first match was against some guy that was fifth in the section. I beat him by 1 point. And then I went up against the number 1 ranked guy, and I was losing with 10 seconds left by 1 point, and I got an escape to go into overtime. And then I caught him in a banana split in overtime and beat him. And then that put me in the semifinals. And that guy was undefeated too. And he took me down, rode me the whole first period. Second period, I caught him with this move I call it the Bob McNeil side roll. There was a guy named Bob McNeil at Stanford that was, all he did was rolling. He was like a pill bug, he just rolling everywhere. And so he taught me this move, and I caught him with one, and I put him on his back and held him there the whole second period. He was fighting so hard to get off, he was exhausted, he couldn't get away third period. Now I'm in the finals, and the guy is my third undefeated guy. He takes me down, right? And I got away, and then he takes me down again. I got away. It's 4-2, and then I caught him with a side roll in the second period. Now it's 4-4. Third period, all you gotta do is escape, and he's the state champion. And he stands up and he breaks my lock. And right before he escapes, I reach down, I snatch his leg, and I'm hanging on for dear life, and I don't know what to do. And I'm thinking to myself, this could be my last match ever. Because my plan was to join the military and meet new and interesting people and kill them. So I did something I never did before. I did a backseat play with a single leg, and miracle upon miracles, he lands on his back. And I slap in a half Nelson and cradle him for 3 and won the state. And I'm still the only California state champion in history never to win a tournament prior to the state qualifiers. And if you look at my brother's career, my brother, when he was in high school, when he started out his senior year in high school, he went to the Great Plains, and he won, and he beat Joe Tice, who was the World Cup champion, and Chuck Yagla, who was a 2-time NCAA champion and the outstanding wrestler. And these guys are great guys. I really love these guys. And that qualified him for the Tbilisi tournament, which used to be the toughest tournament in the world. It was because there's 10 Russians in every weight class that could all win the world championships. And so he goes over there. Newt Koppel, the president of the AAU, which was the national governing body by then, didn't want to take Dave because he thought his win in the Great Plains was a fluke. He's just a high school kid. And but all the guys on the team got together and told me, you have to bring him. He qualified. And so he reluctantly brought him. And Dave ended up doing better than anybody else in the entire U.S. team. He took a silver medal at Tbilisi. But because he was over at Tbilisi, he missed all the state qualifiers in California, which has 1,000 schools, by the way. And the coaches in California knew how great Dave was. So they all got together, and my coach petitioned Dave to get into the state tournament, and they let him in, but they said you have to go up a weight because you didn't weigh in. So he went up to 168 or 170. He won the Central Coast section and pinned his way through state until the finals. He beat the guy 12-1. And then he goes to the National Open Greco-Roman Championships, and he wins that at 149.5 pounds, and he gets the Guerrerian Award for the most falls in the least amount of time. And this is while he did all this while he was a senior in high school. Now, you couldn't find two more opposite California state champions if you tried, and were brothers. It's like a Ripley's Believe It or Not story or something. It's weird.
Were you guys getting together and wrestling during that time at all?
No, that's another misconception people have. A lot of people think Dave helped me when I started wrestling to get good. I never wrestled Dave one time from the time I started to the time I won the state. I never wrestled with him one time. But then after I win the state, he's off at Oklahoma State, and he's 35-1 his freshman year, and he took third in the NCAA. And then he comes back from Oklahoma State to Palo Alto to hang out with me for the summer. And he'd go, hey, you want to go work out? And I'd be like, nah, I don't feel like it. And he'd go, you pussy. And I was like, a real high-pitched, effeminate sounding voice. You pussy. It pissed me off. He'd get under my skin, you know. And so I'd go, okay, you're going to die today. So we would go work out, and he would just kick the crap out of me, like 30-0. And now we're the same size. I'm built better than he is. And I mean, he looks like a chemistry professor. I mean, I look like a wrestler, but anyway, I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, how is he so much better than me? And this went on every day, you know, you want to go work out? No, you pussy. And okay, let's go. And so we go. And he just killed me. And after 3 months, all of a sudden, not scoring 1 point, I thought to myself, maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong. So instead of me trying to score on him, I'm just going to try to keep him from scoring on me. So every time he tried something, I'd back up, I'd break his lock, I'd stall. I just became this incredible staller. And boy, that pissed him off. But screw him. This is my life. He's crushing my confidence. I don't care. So anyway, it worked. Instead of getting killed like 30-0, I could keep it down to like 2-0 or something. And that really helped my confidence a lot because Dave's the best in the world. And if I can keep him from scoring on me, I can keep anybody from scoring on me. And there's a Star Trek episode where Data is on the Star Trek Enterprise, and some guy comes onto the Enterprise, he's a war games expert, and he's beating Data in all these war games. And Data's got this incredible positronic brain, and he's thinking something's wrong with his brain because he keeps losing to this guy. And finally, he changes his mind. He goes, I'm just going to try and keep this guy from, I'm not going to try to win. I'm just going to try and keep it 0-0. And as long as he didn't try to win, he could keep it 0-0 the whole time. And I was thinking to myself, I figured that out 10 years before I saw that episode. They stole my idea.
I can't believe Mark Schultz watches the Star Trek. That's awesome.
Anyway, there's, I could go on and on, but I'll let you guys talk.
I love listening to your stories, man. Like, I read the stories. I have I sent Ray some pictures earlier. I have like a clip book of stuff wrestling and bodybuilding stuff that I used to clip out of like Sports Illustrated, and I showed him an article about you and the Olympics where you broke the guy's arm with the Kimura, and then they let you win the match and then disqualified you like after the protest time and like all that. Like I remember all of that, man. Like I was reading about it in like Sports Illustrated while you were doing it and you were living that
Yeah,
life. So like hearing you tell these
yeah,
stories, like to me, like face to face, it's just really cool to hear. I'd like
yeah.
to,
That was a double wrist lock back
yeah.
then. Now, the Brazilians came and renamed that. Kimura. Same move.
So you
Anyway,
you and your
that was a 30-second match against that. That guy was ranked #1 in the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
You know
you're like, I would
what he said?
apologize, but he was a sissy. He would have just called me a sissy, something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever you said, that's so funny.
You know the way they bracket the Olympic tournament is you get on the scale buck naked and you reach into this bucket and you pull out an egg and then you open it up and inside's a number. And all the even number guys go on one side of the bracket and all the odd number guys go on the other. So I get on there and I pull out the number 6. Well, the #1 ranked guy in the world, and he was the #1 ranked guy. He beat all the Russians that boycotted the Olympics, and he gets on there and he pulls out the number 8. Well, that means 2's going to wrestle 4 first match, and 6 is going to wrestle 8. So I had the gold medal match, my very first match. This is only my second international tournament. I'm scared to death. I go back to my hotel room and I just sit on my bed staring at the wall for 2 hours, just sitting, sweating, waiting for this match. And then the match comes around and he does this limp arm to a high crotch. And I had seen this Cuban do this move to some guy from Paraguay or Uruguay or one of those Guay countries. And he got him in this, and I thought, there's no way to get out of it. So when he got me in that, I just thought, you know what, it's him or me, and it's going to be me. And so I just threw it, and I expected him to go head over heels and give me 2 points, but he hit his head, stopping his rotation, and his elbow just snapped immediately, and then he fell on his back, and I fell on top of him, and I'm already looking at the ref like, hurry up and call the pin. And then he called the pin, and then I'm sitting in the stands 8 hours later, and they said Mark Schultz has just been disqualified for excessive brutality or something. And my mom's sitting right next to me, and she thinks I've been thrown out of the tournament. She freaks out. And I already had thought, I go, don't worry about it, Mom. I'm just thrown out of the match, not the tournament. So I can still win the gold if I win everything. So I had already figured that out, before they said that. But yeah. Anyway, I'm skipping way ahead. I should have stayed back in my high school or college days. It was. I had to talk about how the Brazilians changed Kimura the double wrist.
Yeah, double wrist locks to Kimura. Are you more of a catch wrestling guy, or do you like accept the Brazilian terminology?
I think I'm a combination of both. I use both terminology. I don't care what the name is. You want to call it a Kimura, it doesn't matter to me.
I just don't want you to beat me up, dog. Like, but you're still Mark Schultz, man.
Hey, Mark, what you think about guys pulling guard?
It depends on the environment. If you're in a padded room, well, it's a pretty good move, if you know what you're doing. But on the street or on the concrete, your head's like 2 inches from the concrete. And the guy on top could just smash your head into the concrete. It's not that great on concrete.
You've watched the evolution of jiu-jitsu from the very beginning. Like you were like there right from the very beginning. Like you trained with Nixon, correct? Yeah.
I was one of the first. I was so lucky. I'm like the luckiest person on earth. I got my brother's Dave Schultz. Hickson Gracie comes to America and wrestles me. We have this grappling match in the BYU wrestling room. And so, like, I'm the first high level wrestlers to learn what jujitsu is. I never even thought anything like this existed before. And he got me in this triangle, and I was like, wow, that is the coolest move ever. And we went again, and he got me in a rear naked. I'm like, I gotta learn this. And it just so happened, this is another coincidence. His student, Pedro Sauer, was living right there in Provo, Utah, of all places. You talk about a weird coincidence. What's Pedro doing in the middle of the heart of Mormonism? I mean, it's ridiculous. It, but it was, I was a Mormon. I converted to the church back then. I left the church about 6 months ago. No, about a year ago, when I learned it was all BS. All you guys out there, the Mormon church is all lies. I'm telling the whole world needs to know. I'm not kidding. It's a cult. It really is.
We had
You can use words, just a term. Using the word cult or church or tax-free corporation. Use whatever terms you want, but the fact is, they are defined as a cult. There's a bite model. It's called the bite model. It defines cults. If a church exerts undue influence on your behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions, that's a cult, and they absolutely do, and they lie to do it, which is evil in my opinion. But the Mormon, now I'm just saying, I'm not talking about the rank and file Mormon people. The rank and file Mormon people are the best people I've ever met. My wrestlers at BYU were the most moral, intelligent, hardworking, family-oriented guys I've ever met in my life. And they were so intelligent. They won the National Academic Championship 3 times while I was there, and they took second 3 times. Every time they took first, Stanford took second. Every time they took second, Stanford took first. So these guys were really smart and tough and moral guys. They're really great people. But the leaders are lying scumbags.
We had Sean Doherty on. He was a fighter in UFC too, and he said pretty much the same thing that you just said, almost exactly word for word. So I'm not really a Mormon, so I don't take any offense to it. And if we have any fans that are Mormon, I'm sorry, but like we've got some high level guys that say might not be all that great. So maybe we should stay away from the church and just be a good person.
Yeah. Well, I need to say, I had a great experience at BYU. It was a very positive experience, and it was because of the great people that I met back there. And I've actually thought about moving back to Utah because it was such a good experience. Because the people really are good. I mean, if you get into a religious debate with them, they can be kind of annoying. But aside from that, if you keep religion out of it, they're great.
That's awesome, man. You and your brother are known for coming up with innovative techniques in wrestling. Is that some of the stuff that you took from jiu-jitsu? Is that just the way that you guys were? Like they make moves illegal because of your brother. Is that something that you guys worked on together? Like, where did that all come from? Why are you guys so innovative? And is that one of the reasons why you got into jiu-jitsu itself?
Well, I kind of followed Dave's path in a way. I mean, I made my own path. When I started wrestling, he didn't help me, but then I heard stories about how he got good, and it was because he kept notes and he was a great technician. And so, and it's true, Dave really did change the whole paradigm of wrestling from a sport that was mainly pure conditioning to a much more technical sport. And that was really the beginning of the technical era is when Dave started, because Dave, okay, he looks just like a regular normal guy walking the street, but he can beat these super, national world champs, and everyone's like, how is he doing it? And they think, well, it must be the technique, and it is the technique. And it's funny because when I see him coaching guys, I see him spend like hours coaching these guys, showing them every little detail and stuff. And he never showed me anything. And But that was okay because I was a gymnast, and gymnasts have to visualize very complicated, risky techniques because if you miss the high bar by a millimeter, you can break your neck. Gymnasts have the highest broken neck per capita of any NCAA sport. But you really have to visualize things very carefully before you attempt them. But these are. I mean, I was doing 2.5 twisting, 1.5 backs off 3-meter board. That's a lot different than looking at somebody doing a switch or a stand up or a rear naked and then copying it. It's so simple compared to gymnastics. I'm not saying the sport's not. It's not. I say wrestling is a simple sport, but it's not easy. It's the hardest sport, but it's also simple because it's just conditioning and technique. Well, the conditioning is 90% of it, and the technique. I mean, if you can push somebody to exhaustion, helplessness through fatigue, you can do almost anything you want to them, and they'll go down. But it's not that way in gymnastics, where technique. 90% of the sport of gymnastics is technique. Anyway,
that sounds like my cardio.
What's that?
I said that sounds like my cardio.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Burger King instead of running.
20 seconds, and you can do whatever you want to me.
Yeah, right. Oh man, we're all human, man.
What do you think about these high school kids beating the NCAA champs now? There's been a lot of high school kids that have been doing really well against NCAA champs. You think that's going to be a new thing, that these kids are super technical now? What's going on with that? I've been seeing this a lot, and then you're I don't know who else to ask besides for a goddamn Olympic champion. I figure he might be the guy to ask.
We're in the YouTube age. You can watch all kinds of techniques you want now and learn them really. You can learn anything you want on YouTube. But when I was competing, you had to ask somebody how to do it, and you had to memorize how to do it, and you had to write it down so you wouldn't forget it. And so it's a different kind of game, but yeah, it's definitely contributed to the technical difficulty of wrestling, and Dave really contributed to that quite a bit, I think. Dave was he wasn't really the first high school kid that dominated. Jimmy Carr. You could debate whether Dave or Jimmy Carr had the best high school senior season in history. Jimmy Carr made the Olympic team at 16, but he was a smaller guy. There's not as many competitors at smaller weights, but Dave was a middleweight. He's probably the most popular weight, 149.5 pounds, like the average American weight. So it was different at that weight. But who was that kid that beat that? Was it the ranked number? He was ranked number 1. He was a high school kid. He was real recently.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. I was just watching it too. I just watched it last week, and I don't remember his name, but I remember the match, and this is the second one I've seen like that. So it's happening quite a bit.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is happening quite a bit that we've never seen before. Like the number of 4-time NCAA champions, that was unheard of in my era. I mean, nobody had ever done it. And now we've got all kinds of people doing it. And a lot of that is contributed by Title IX. You know what Title IX is?
Yeah, it got rid of it. Women have to be included, so a lot of wrestling programs got cut because if schools didn't cut a program so the equal men's and women's program, they cut something that doesn't bring in a lot of revenue, which is going to be wrestling, because wrestling doesn't really generate a lot of money because people come and watch men pin each other. It's not really that exciting. I think it's one of the most exciting sports in the world, but it's hard to bring in a fan base unless you're in Iowa or somewhere that's really wrestling heavy.
Not only that, but there's no corresponding female sport for wrestling. I mean, you could say there is sort of now, but it's so small. The group of women that wrestle is so small, it's almost insignificant. And, the wrestling world's been trying to incorporate women's wrestling as a way to protect them from Title IX, but women just don't have the interest that men do.
Do you think it could be the weight too? It's like a woman that weigh like 260 pounds.
What's the question?
Ray's making fun of fat girls. That was a
Well, I want to
question.
go out with the 260-pound girl.
Ray's like, do you think that the heavyweight girls don't want to be the heavyweight girl? That's what he's trying to say. Like, they don't want to get all out there in a singlet and be all heavyweight. We have some of the McBride girls used to train with me. Mustafa McBride. Now they're over at Life University, and they're ranked number one. All three of the McBride girls are doing an awesome job over at Life University. So huge shout out to them. They're doing an awesome job. Their brother Mohammed, he was on the Olympic ladder for freestyle. So good, like good solid kids. He made the U23 team, and then he was trying to get on the ladder. Wouldn't take the vaccine, so then he just went to coach instead.
Yeah, I'm an expert on Title IX because I had to deal with that issue before BYU dropped wrestling when I was the head coach there. So I was learning everything I could about it to try to argue why we need to keep wrestling. And the problem is nobody except wrestlers know how valuable a sport it is for building character and confidence. I mean, there's no sport better than wrestling. And teach individual responsibility, and hard work pays off. All the things that we want our kids to be, wrestling teaches those lessons better than anything. And jiu-jitsu is the same way. And it's the fact that we're cutting all these sports, we're destroying our youth. And the reason is people don't even take this into account. But the reason we're cutting wrestling is because football is the goose that lays the golden egg. They pay for all the sports in every college athletic department. It's usually, and they're getting 80 full rides. Well, that's 80 full scholarships going to men. So women complain using Title IX as the reason they're complaining, and they'll say, hey, the law says you can't discriminate against us based on our gender. So you need to give us 80 full rides. Well, schools don't have all that money. So they're like, well, since we can't put a ton of money into women's sports, we're just going to cut all the non-revenue sports, all the male non-revenue sports. And wrestling's always first on the chopping block because we have no corresponding female numbers to balance the numbers out. And we're not making any money for the school. But we're cutting the most valuable sport of all the sports we have in our intercollegiate program, high schools, the things that make kids turn boys to men. We're cutting the legs right out from under them. And it's really a travesty in this country. This is how it's gone. But, money rules the day, right? So athletic administrators are going to choose whatever is going to enrich their athletic department the most. And that's cutting wrestling. They can put more money into football or women's sports. So we're always the first to go. So, like when I was competing, I think there was 470 programs. Now there's only 70. And it's wiped out programs like dew before the sun. It's just amazing how fast they wiped this out.
Right, it's a terrible thing. I was going through college wrestling when that was going on too, so like I understand like a lot of programs got cut while I was wrestling. They've talked about taking taking wrestling on the Olympics. What do you feel about that?
That's so ridiculous. I mean, wrestling was one of the original Olympic sports. They're going to take out one of the original sports. When they announced that, the whole wrestling community just went crazy, and they started petitioning everybody, and then they finally reversed their decision. But yeah, that's an insane. I mean, they've got curling in the Olympics, for God's sake. You're going to take wrestling out and keep curling?
Flag football.
There's flag football in the Olympics?
Yeah, there's gonna be flag football in the Olympics and the next Olympic Games.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
One of the
wow.
test sports. Yeah.
Well, that's news to me.
Yeah, they're gonna try and get some like some of the high level college guys. I'm like, they're not gonna get those guys. They're not gonna give up NFL money to like go play the Olympics. They don't understand, man.
Flag football.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm
Hey,
all
Mark.
for women's sports. I'm all for equality in women's sports. I have 2 daughters. So, yeah, I want women to have equal opportunity, but not at the expense of my son. Just,
Right.
you know,
Hey
the
Mark.
fight over money is what it is.
Hey Mark, it's a rumor that you got the most titles, wrestling titles. So you're in the Guinness Book of Records for that, for the most wrestling titles?
Well, in 1991, me, Lee Kemp, and John Smith we all had 3 world or Olympic titles, and we were included in the 1991 Guinness Book of World Records. I didn't even know that. I was in some Goodwill store just browsing around, and I saw this, and I picked it up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in here. It was only $2, so I bought it. I've got it behind me. It's sitting right back there. I could show it to you. I don't have the most world titles anymore, of course, but in 1991 I did. I was actually the first guy to win the Olympics and 2 world titles. Lee Kemp was the first one to win 3 world titles. He was denied the chance to go to the Olympics in 1980, and I'll guarantee you he would have won the gold medal in 1980. He was the most dominant wrestler on the planet in 1980. Well, him and Gene Mills, maybe Chris Campbell. Well, I don't want to leave anybody out, but yeah, Lee Kemp got screwed. But he's the real, in my mind, he's the real Olympic champion of the 1980 Olympics.
So let's get back into like what you do with coaching. Do you have a school or do you just do seminars? I know you want us to plug some of your seminars, so kind of asking, do you have a school to go to too? Do you coach wrestling anywhere? What's going on with you coaching wise?
Yeah, there's a local high school, South Medford High School, that I coach. There's a little kids club there that I coach sometimes, and I go to their tournaments and stuff. But yeah, if people want to get a hold of me and set up a seminar, whether it's wrestling or jiu-jitsu or the combination of both, they can get a hold of me at MS Grappling on Facebook, Mark P. Schultz on Instagram, Mark Schultz on Twitter. That's my name with a Y. My nickname in high school was Schultz. And so they can get a hold of me that way if that's what they want to do.
We'll tag it when we post this. So right now it's live. So the live we can't tag stuff in it. But when I re-put it on YouTube, I will we'll tag all that in there so people can you can just click down and scroll into the description. Not right now, but if you're watching this later, you can scroll through the description and we'll put it in there, and then you just click on it and it'll take you right to him stuff. I own a gym. There's a lot of people around me in the area that own a gym, so maybe we can get you up here. That'd be awesome.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
How long is this podcast, by the way?
However long you want. When you gotta go, you say, and then you're gone. You're Mark freaking Schultz, kid. Whatever you want.
Okay.
That'd be cool if you
go on forever. I don't know if you want to say that to me because I can go forever.
So far, we have Mark Coleman on, and we did 6.5 hours. That's our longest one.
You're kidding? In one show?
The one show, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
We had Dan the Beast.
What time is it?
It's 10:46 our time. Mark was a little bit inebriated when we started the podcast, so like the first couple hours we had to let him chill out a little bit, and then we got a pretty good last hour and a half. We used to not do it live, so we make more money when we do it live. But when we didn't do it live, we just talked with the guys for a really long time, and we recorded the whole thing. And like some of the stuff he was saying we couldn't air because he's a little bit intoxicated. You know how wrestlers are when we get a little intoxicated. We're saying things we shouldn't say.
And Mark's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, dude. We love Mark Coleman too. Like
Caveman, Tom Erickson we had on here.
Yeah, we had Tom Erickson on too. Yeah, we had some good guys. Yeah, Tom
Yeah,
Harrison
Mark,
was good.
he sold his championship, UFC championship belt to some collector, and so that's what I've been doing too. I've been selling my memorabilia collectibles on eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Just make a little extra money. I've got equipment from 6 world and Olympic teams I made in a row, and and I might even sell my Olympic gold medal, but I'd have to get a lot of money. I don't know how much. That's a strange question. Yeah, how much money would I sell my Olympic gold medal?
The price in
I
gold
was
went
thinking
up.
about $500,000.
It'd be worth
But
it.
anybody want to buy it for $500,000? I'll consider it.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys heard it here first. If you have $500,000, contact Mark Schultz, and you can have an official Olympic gold medal. Not even a fake one. He'll give you the real thing for $500,000.
No,
That's
but
all.
I got a bunch
Dude,
of collectibles on eBay right now.
yeah. How do you get rid of your collectibles? Do you have like your site or just on eBay?
How do I what? Oh yeah, eBay and Facebook Marketplace, and also I stay in. I make friends with the collectors, and I just try to keep in touch with them, and just tell them what I got, send them pictures of everything I got. You know, like I sold one guy that my the ceremonial uniform you have. I sold it for $4,500, and I have a jacket that I sold for about 5,000 or something. And I have a bunch of stuff. I got this one jacket that I wore when I met President Reagan. I have a picture of me wearing that jacket. I didn't plan this or anything, but that's my
Oh,
right
yeah.
now. This is a good story. When I was here, when I was at Oklahoma, there was a guy named Bobby DeProspero on our team at 118 pounds, and his dad just happened to be the head of the Secret Service. So every time you see the president, you saw his dad standing right next to him. So after the Olympics, President Reagan comes to the Hollywood Hilton, and all the medalists are lined up to meet the president. And me and Dave are standing in the back of the line, maybe 3/4 of the way back. And Mr. DeProspero sees us and he yells, "Hey, Mark, Dave, come on up here." And so we went in front of everybody, went through the velvet ropes. And I think I was the first guy to actually meet the president. And then we took pictures, and I went down. I said I'd vote for him. I didn't know what else to say. And I went to give Nancy a kiss on her cheek, and she turned and kissed me right on the lips.
Oh man.
No tongue.
No man. Secret Service gonna be up on you. You better be careful.
No, I liked him. He's a cool guy. I met President Trump last year at the NCAA's, and I was so freaked out when I met him because I was like thinking, okay, Trump, if you make me vice president, you need somebody to certify the vote. I'll guarantee you, I won't do it if it's not fair. Like Pence didn't, but I don't think he's going to make me vice president. He should, but I don't think he's going to do it.
That'd be good to have an Olympic medalist as a vice president. Like, man,
What if they do?
If he goes to jail, you'll be in charge of everything. Like, it'd work out really good. Can you imagine that if he's in jail and president at the same time? That'd be like
that's
possible.
A good point. I could turn him in and become president. I'm all motivated.
I would vote for that ticket. If you're on the ticket, I'll vote whatever platform or party you're with. I'm voting for Mark Schultz.
Jim Jordan.
Well, I'm sorry,
Jim Jordan. He's like I think he might be the next Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 2-time NCAA champion at Wisconsin. He beat John Smith in the finals to win 2 NCAA titles. Well, my brother coached him, and now he's running the was it the weaponization of the federal government hearings? You know that he's
No, I know
running
about
that
that.
whole thing. And he's really gotten high up there.
Man,
He's from Ohio, the
damn.
3rd district, I think.
Wrestlers do everything. That's like it teaches you such discipline. And
You know, President Trump was a wrestler.
no, I didn't know that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got a picture of him with a wrestling singlet on at the military academy. Matter of fact, I was going to ask him. This is what I'm so screwed. I was so excited to meet him. I forgot everything I was going to say, and I didn't say a word. But I was going to ask him if he would allow me to submit his name to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame to be inducted as an outstanding American, which is a category reserved for people that are outstanding Americans, but are also known as wrestlers. They don't have to be any good at wrestling, but they're known as wrestlers. And I forgot that, as well as, you know, telling him I'd be vice president. I forgot everything. So I didn't get anything done, but except I got my picture with it. That's about it.
I
If you got
definitely
those
got to
two
look
teams
up. I got to
together, he
look
would
up
love
that
it.
picture.
What?
Well, Ray,
I got to look up
I-
the Trump picture.
he's looking
Oh,
for
yeah.
the Trump wrestling picture right now.
Yeah. It's Military Academy. Google the. I don't know what military academy name. If you look at that, the team photo, everybody has the name of the military academy on the front of their singlet, but for some reason his singlet doesn't. It's the same color, same design, but it doesn't have the name on it. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why.
Maybe head it on backwards.
That's what I was.
You ever see the guy that puts a singlet on backwards? Every
I've
team's got
never
that
done
one
that.
kid. I want to get into. Well, I still got you before you got to get out of here. I want to talk to you about your appearance in UFC. How did that come about? How did it feel to fight? And why didn't you never pursue the career in fighting?
Okay, well, you can see a. This is a really good documentary. I'm not just saying that. It was nominated for an Emmy. You can see this, the whole story that I'm about to tell, on YouTube for free now. It's called Wrestling Demons, Mark Schultz's Ultimate Victory. And what it tells the whole story of how I met Hickson Gracie. I was sitting at my home one day, and I got this phone call from this guy who's a blue belt in a Gracie club in Provo, Utah. And he goes, "Is this Mark Schultz, the Olympic wrestling champion?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, the greatest jiu-jitsu fighter in the world is in town. Do you want to fight him?" I was like, "What are the rules?" And he was trying to intimidate me, and this really makes me mad. He goes, "There are no rules." I was like, "Really? No rules at all? What are we going to commit a homicide?" So I wasn't going to let him pump me. And I said, "Okay, you tell him to meet me at the BYU wrestling room a week from Thursday, because I had to go to the NCAA's, and we'll commit a homicide, I guess." So I go to the NCAA. I couldn't think straight for a week. I've never been challenged like this. And I was thinking about it the whole time. And so finally the day comes around. I walk in the wrestling room, and there's Hickson Gracie scooting on his butt, trying to hook the ankles of the head coach, Alan Albright. This is when I was an assistant. And as soon as I walk in the room, Hickson stands up, comes over to me, and he goes, "Are you the guy?" I go, "Yeah, I'm the guy." "Are you the guy?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm the guy." So he goes, "What I do is I punch, kick, elbow, knee, all this. But today we're just going to do submission grappling until one of us taps out." And I was like, "Thank God there's not going to be a homicide." So we went out into the center of the room, and I took him down and had him in a cradle for like 20 minutes. And then my grip just gave out. 20 minutes is a hell of a long time to hold somebody in a cradle. And he threw his legs around my upper body, and it was so weird. The fact that he was on his back was really strange to me. And I've never, encountered anything like this before. And I lifted him up and tried to slam him down, and he kind of broke his lock a little bit, but then he got it back and got the triangle, and I'm tapping out. And I was like, wow, that is a cool move. Let's go again. So we went again, and we went about another 20 minutes, and I don't know any submission holds because the rules in wrestling forbid those holds. Matter of fact, if you open up a wrestling rule book, it's like a jujitsu construction. If you look at all the moves that are against the rules, it's like a jujitsu instruction manual. So I'm looking. I'm making stuff up on the fly now. I know the double wrist lock because I broke the Turk's arm with it, and I know how to keep my elbows in and my chin down from judo. I did some judo in Colorado Springs. I was dating this judo player. I was working out with her team, and man, Leo White is one tough judo guy. Anyway, I knew that, and so I'm making stuff up on the fly. This is the first time I've done this, and I'm going against the best in the world. And so I can't get him in anything. So I'm thinking, I've been on top of him for 20 minutes. I can't get anything. Maybe I'll let him get on top of me. So I let him reverse me. And me being a wrestler, I brainwash myself to go belly down. So I go belly down. Like, it's like I got my arms way out to the side, like I'm trying to keep him from turning me in freestyle. And he just starts weaving in this rear naked. And pretty soon I'm tapping out again. And then after that, he said something that just, I love this guy. He said, Mark, you're the toughest guy I've ever gone against. And I just love this guy now. I want to be just like him. And I found out he had a student right there in Provo, Utah, of all places, Pedro Sauer. And so I go call Pedro, or I go down to Pedro's pub one day, and I said, I'm here to sign up. And he signed me up, and I became a student of his for 3 years. And after 3 years, he called me one day and he goes, Dave Beneteau, the National Wrestling Heavyweight Champion of Canada, is going to fight in UFC 9. He wants to come down here and train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with us. And he wants to wrestle with somebody. Would you wrestle with him? I go, yeah. So he comes down, and we wrestle for about 2 weeks. And the last day we wrestled, I slammed him, and he rolled on one of his metacarpals, and it snapped. Ooh. And I took him to the hospital, and the doctor said, well, you broke it, and we can put a cast on it, or we can put a plate in, and you might be able to cover it up, maybe put some makeup on it because it was really purple, and maybe you can still fight. So he goes, put a plate in. So they put the plate in, and we go and meet up at Detroit, at Cobo Arena, Detroit, Michigan. And me and Pedro and Lonnie Foster, who's passed now, and Dave Beneteau, we all meet in Detroit. And we go to the press conference, and somebody ratted Dave out and said his hand was broke. So the team doctor comes over to Dave and he goes, let me see your hand. And he had this big purple bump on his hand. And the doctor said, I'm going to recommend to the promoter that you not be allowed to fight. So the promoter told Dave, you're out. And so as soon as he did this, Pedro turns to me and he goes, you know, Mark, I know who he's going to compete against. I can beat him. I think you can too. So I go up to Bob Meyerowitz, the promoter, and I said, what do you think about me taking Dave's place? And he said this, and I quote, oh, that's a great idea. You're Olympic champion. It'll be even better when you lose. I was like, why do you have to say that? So I go, can you give me the night to think about it? And he goes, yeah. So I'm trying to sleep, and they're calling me like every 2 hours, asking me if I made a decision yet. And I'm like, you guys got to let me sleep. I'm not going to be able to fight. You guys keep waking me up every 2 hours. So finally, 10 in the morning, they call me with this ultimatum and say, you got to tell us right now or we're getting someone else. So I called up Pedro and I said, let's go downstairs. So we went downstairs, and Bob Meyerowitz and Art Davies were sitting there in the lounge, and they got the contract on the table. And I go, "Can you give me just one more minute?" And I went over into this corner and I started to pray. And this is 4 months after my brother was murdered. And I got this strong feeling that my brother was somehow there with me, or some entity was there with me telling me I had to do this. And so I got up. I told Pedro I'm going to do it. I went over to Meyerowitz and I signed the contract. And then I had an AIDS test. I didn't bring any equipment with me, and then I bought a cup. One of Pedro's students had wrestling shoes, and they just happened to be the same size as mine. And he goes, and so he gave the wrestling shoes to me. And a lot of people think that UFC only had two rules: no eye gouging and no biting. But there was a third rule, and that was if you decided to wear shoes,
No kicks.
you couldn't kick.
No kicks to the
Right.
face, right?
And so I decided to wear shoes and not kick because my style requires me to be able to drive. The wrestlers are always driving. So Big John McCarthy comes around to us. There's this tent inside the arena, and it's got sectioned off. And so each fighter gets their own section. And I'm in there waiting for my match to come up. And I'm looking out at the arena, and this is nothing like a wrestling tournament. The fans are just like bloodthirsty animals. They're just like screaming for blood. And there's these two guys in this cage just going bam, bam, bam. And I was like, what am I doing here? So anyway, John McCarthy comes over, and they had spent all day in court because there was a lot of issues over whether this is excessively brutal and so the lawyers were arguing that the sport was excessively brutal. So they made a compromise in order for this event to take place, that there would be no closed fist punches. So John McCarthy, but they didn't define what a closed fist was. The lawyers don't know how to fight, so they don't know how to define a closed fist. So John McCarthy comes over to me and he goes, tonight there will be no closed fist fighting. And I was like, I'm going to win for sure, because, my opponent is a tremendous striker. He's a murderer when it comes to striking. And then he goes, now show me a closed fist. And I showed him, and he goes, now show me an open fist. And I showed him like a karate chop. And he goes, no, this is closed, this is open. And if you violate the rules, we're going to fine you $50 per violation. But as far as when we're going to collect, it'll just be whenever. So punch all you want, basically. So I was like, okay, I just went from high to low, back to high. So my emotions are all over the place. But anyway, I won that fight, and I'm actually good friends with my opponent, Gary Goodrich. We became really great friends. I love that guy. He's great.
We heard he's been having some trouble cognitively lately. Have you been in contact with him recently?
Yeah. Oh, you should have seen him about 2 years ago. He spoke like he had a mouthful of marbles. But if you listen to him in Wrestling Demons, the documentary, he's clear as a bell. It's like he's not impaired at all. The brain rewires itself. It's just a fact. It's the way it is. It just does. And, it rewired itself in him fairly quickly, I think. But, yeah, I'm glad he's better.
Yeah, me too.
He was great in that documentary, too. He's so great. Him, Chael Sonnen, it co-stars Chael Sonnen, Dave Beneteau, Pedro Sauer, and Gary Goodrich, and they're all just fantastic in this episode. It's really no
So
surprise it was nominated for an Emmy.
we have a fan that said, I love the story about the toughest guy Chael Sonnen knew. Talk about the toughest guy he knew, who was Mark Schultz. And I heard that a lot when I've been telling people that I'm going to have you on the podcast. Everyone's like, oh, man, let them know about that. So, man, like you are world famous. Like everyone talks about you, talk about it on all the podcasts still. Like everyone knows who you are. And to me, it's like unreal that you're just coaching like a little kids club somewhere, like, retired like college guys coach kids club, and you're like the highest, you reach the highest level possible in wrestling, and you're like, I'm gonna coach kids too, and like that's a really cool thing, man.
Well, I was very fortunate. I was born into the same family as the greatest high school wrestler in history and world Olympic champion, Dave Schultz. I mean, he was my training partner for years and years. I mean, it was not easy. Believe me, being Dave's brother was not easy. When I was a kid, I started grade school early, a year early, and and, and so I was always small and young for my grade. Dave, as an adult, he's a 163 pounder. He's about 5'8.5". But when he was like in third grade, he was like 163, 5'8.5". I mean, he was a giant kid, and he would out eat the adults. And if anybody ever picked on me, he'd go and beat the hell out of them because it's like, hey, that's my job. So anyway, I was very fortunate to be his brother, and it's taken me a long time to really appreciate how lucky I was to be born into the same family as him. He had, a lot of people don't know this, but Dave had dyslexia, and he could not read. And he got all the way through high school without being able to read. He figured out a way. I don't know how he did it, but when he went to college, I had to teach him how to study, and he learned, and he graduated with a higher GPA than me. So he's very, very intelligent. And when he was a kid, they didn't know what dyslexia was. So they put him in these really remedial reading classes, like Ann and Sam went down the slide. He hated it. He was in this room with all these kids that really are mentally retarded. Can you say retarded anymore? Is that a word?
No, that's okay. You cannot hear it.
I know years ago when I was everybody could say retarded.
Say whatever you want.
This guy here, he's retarded.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to be politically incorrect or anything. Yeah, he was in a room with a bunch of mentally challenged guys, and he's not. Matter of fact, he's more intelligent than the average kid. And anyway, I was just, and so anyway, I was just, and he led by example. I would watch him and copy him. He was like the leader. He was like the leader of a one-man cult, and I was the only member. Before I joined the Mormon Church, I was in the Dave Schultz cult.
Oh man, you're a sucker for the cults. We better be careful here.
I just go from one cult to another.
Don't open any emails after this podcast. You'll be getting some cult offerings.
Yeah, the Moonies, the Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Some crazy jiu-jitsu people. Like I'm a third degree coral belt, even though you train with the best in the world. Gotta be always careful for those scams. They're always coming around. I do want to ask you about the movie Foxcatcher, the general release movie, not the documentary.
I don't like that movie.
Is there any accuracy in that at all? I mean, they have you fighting like a guy that's not. Is there any accuracy in that movie?
The murder. The only accurate part of that movie is the murder, but everything that happened before and immediately after that murder is complete fiction. It's really too bad because the book is a New York Times bestseller. The story is nominated for an Emmy. It's a great story. It's a great And here the director changes it because he's so conceited, or he thinks he's so great, or he's so smart, and he just ruined it. You can't even follow the story. But I did like the fact that I was played by People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, because that was the only guy that could find it.
You didn't even beat up poor Gary Goodrich. They didn't have you fight the right guy. Like the most easy thing to check.
Yeah. Why would he do that? It makes no sense. It's like, I don't know what he was thinking. But I remember Mark Ruffalo saying in the elevator, he was really like, didn't want anybody to talk, wanted everybody to like follow orders like we were like slaves or something during this, when they were doing the actual filming. And Mark Ruffalo, I overheard him say, "Is this even gonna work?" He was saying that to Steve Carell, I think. And no, it didn't work. But it was nominated for 5 Oscars. However, they didn't win any. The actors did a great job. They worked really hard, and they were really good. I don't think the character that Channing played was me. Well, parts of me, I guess, came out in his character, but he didn't. He was so down and gloomy all the time. I'm like, I'm not like that, and I just didn't understand why they didn't show another side of me. I mean, it's a very one-dimensional character, whoever that guy is. But he's taking orders from the director and giving the director what he wants. He knows what he's doing. He's an actor. He follows orders, so he gives him what he wants. But it didn't work. I mean, the movie was made for $24 million. I think it lost $12 million at the box office, and I think the whole wrestling community boycotted it because it was so inaccurate and it was so disrespectful. The director said in the Washington Times, "My intention from the beginning was to demean and disrespect Mark Schultz." Now, why would he do that? What's his problem? Was he jealous? Why does he have to hate me so much? I'm giving him my story. I'm just handing it to him and I'm trusting him to do something, inspirational, maybe. I don't know. It's a great story. And I don't know what his problem is.
Do you think that DuPont? I don't mean to I don't want to push on. If this
No,
gets
go
too
ahead.
sensitive, you say was DuPont handled pretty accurately? I know that you guys had interactions too with Steve Carell. Is that kind of how he
Steve
was?
Carell was not as dirty and sloppy and ugly as DuPont. DuPont was even more of a villain and a slob and a loudmouth, know-it-all, and arrogant. I don't think that side of DuPont came out very well. DuPont's a real, he's a criminal. Just nobody knew about it until he committed the murder. But he bought his way out of all kinds of stuff. He hit a guy on the street one time, dragged the guy off the street onto the sidewalk, and then drove away. And then he got in trouble with the cops, but he owns the cops, and he's got tons of money for lawyers. He had them, create a financial settlement so we could make it go away, and it just went away. And so he's getting away with, but he wasn't getting away with murder of my brother, thank God. And he died in 2010 in prison from emphysema and COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is what he deserves. He deserves to drown to death. He made my brother drown on his own blood. I'm scared to drown in water. I can't even imagine what it was like for him. And he doesn't even know why he's being killed. And he's got 2 kids he's leaving behind. I can't imagine the horror that went through his mind when that was happening. It's inconceivable to me. And yeah, that guy was he's just an evil piece of shit. And, he wanted people to believe he was something he wasn't. He was a liar. I mean, every negative characteristic in his personality, he embodied it. But it's been 30-something years, 28 years since that happened. So, and I know I'm going to see David. I mean, I don't know. I believe in life after death. So I believe I'm gonna see Dave again. I don't know exactly how. I'm studying like the Bible, and trying to figure out, the nature of God and things like that. But I do believe in life after death. I mean, all the near-death experiences I've seen on YouTube, everybody can't be lying, and some of them got to be true. I think this is my opinion. But, think whatever you want. Don't listen to me. Do your own research.
We had a couple guys on. We for a little bit we were chasing around Christianity. We chased around the Muslim faith. We had a couple religious podcasts in a row. We had Kung Lee on. He was talking
On me,
about Christianity. So look, we had a bunch in a row on. I just want everyone to understand like how much you dislike Dave, not Dave Schultz, John DuPont. And '88, you made the Olympic team, and you threw a
Yes.
match to
Yes, I
make
did.
sure that he didn't get Olympic champion.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
You ever read that story about Achilles? The warrior Achilles, and he's asked by King Agamemnon to go
yep.
fight for him, and he hates Agamemnon, and he refuses to fight. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. I was talking to Mike Chapman, who's one of the most famous wrestling historians, and when I came out and told the truth about that, I kept that inside me for like 20 something years, because throwing a match is kind of a shameful, dishonorable thing to do. And I don't want to disrespect the Turk that I threw it to. And it's just a coincidence that he's from Turkey. And I hear there's a story going around Turkey that this guy got revenge for the first Turk whose arm I broke. But it wouldn't have mattered what country he was from. I had already decided in my mind I could not win this tournament. Not being on DuPont's team. He didn't deserve it. And I mean, he threatened to ruin my career. And in a way he did. But it also got me out of there. And I went to BYU, and I met Hickson Gracie, Pedro Sauer, Dave Benetil, all those guys. I got into jiu-jitsu. I learned that, there's other worlds out there besides wrestling. Wrestling is the greatest foundation to have, but there's millions of worlds in this world. There's engineering, architecture, literature, all kinds of things, science. You can do anything you want. And so I left the wrestling world, which was really sad, because I love the wrestlers, in the wrestling world. They're the best people. And, we go to the NCAAs every year. It's like a big reunion. And I don't want to miss any more NCAA reunions again. I've missed enough of them. When I turned my back on wrestling after what happened in '88, I stayed out of it for like 27 years. And, I just recently came back and went to the NCAAs last year. Met President Trump. Forgot to ask him to make me vice president. And, so yeah, I'm back in it, and I'm happy to be here. It's the best group of guys I've ever met.
Aaron Klein wants to know, what's your most brutal submission, Mark?
I have a move called the Schultz front headlock that I don't show anybody. But yeah, once you get that, also my heel hook. Got to be careful with that. You can cripple somebody. I taught my heavyweight that move. He got it on me and cracked my ankle, and it still cracks to this day. Freaking guy.
That's a really rough one.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about your book? I know you want to pump your book real quick too.
Yeah, it's a New York Times bestseller. It's also an Amazon editor's pick. And some people have criticized that book by saying, number one, it's it's not a true crime story. The publishers are publicizing it. They're naming it Foxcatcher to take advantage of the publicity around the movie. But it's not a true crime story. It's an autobiography. And I get criticized all the time, like on the comments on Amazon. Mark Schultz is all about me, me, me. Well, it's my autobiography. So, but it's also, and this is what I like more than anything, is it's an Amazon editor's pick, which means the people at Amazon have read it, liked it, and are now recommending it to other people. So they must think it's a good book. That's the thing I don't understand. I give this director this book, this story, and it's all right there in black and white, just on a silver platter, and he just like throws it away. He uses parts of it, but then creates something completely different out of it. Now, why would you change something that's considered good by tons of people, and then lose $12 million? It should have been a blockbuster, multi-million-dollar profitable movie, and it lost money. It's boring. God, it's the boringest thing. I'd rather watch paint dry. It's so boring. It is kind of fascinating though to see the actors impersonate me and my brother, but other than that, I got very little entertainment value out of it.
Did the actor have cauliflower ear, at least?
Yeah, they gave makeup, hair and makeup. They were nominated for an Oscar for hair and makeup.
Should be a cauliflower. They should have made all the actors get punched in the ear until they got cauliflower.
Yeah, I volunteered to give them authentic cauliflowers, but none of them accepted my generous offer.
So I put the Amazon link in the comments for everyone watching. You guys can just click on the comment; it'll take you right to Mark Schultz's book, and you can purchase it right from Amazon, right from the link. I made sure that I did the Amazon link, and that I want to just make sure that you guys help our guy. I don't know how much you make per sale, so let's have everyone buy 10 books. That'll probably help them out, or just send Mark some money. That'll work too.
I didn't do it for the money. It's not that big a deal as far as the money goes. So but I think people would like it, especially if you're a wrestler in high school or college. There was a book that came out recently, about 2015 or 16, I think. It's called The Golden Era of Amateur Wrestling. I have it. It's right behind me. And the 1980s, the Golden Age of Amateur Wrestling, 1980s. And in that book, they took a poll of my peers, the wrestlers and coaches that were active competing in the 80s, and they voted me the number one best college wrestler of the 80s. So I was going to make a point, but I forgot what that point was. It's not just to brag, I promise. I'm not trying to brag.
You should definitely brag about it. You wrote a book, it's published, man. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
And you could have been vice president if you would have just opened your mouth.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to be on another podcast coming up here in 2 days. It's called the Mormon Stories Podcast, and it's hosted by John DeLynn, who was excommunicated for doing the right thing, which is basically exposing the unethical practices of the church. And he became like one of the heroes of Mormonism. And I've been on his show before, and I've watched that episode like 100 times, literally. It's so, to me, it's entertaining. But that's the same podcast I'm gonna be on in 2 days. called Mormon Stories Podcast. If you're interested,
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out. And
Yeah.
how we get it? Where all podcasts are, like Spotify, everywhere.
you just go on Google and just Google Mark Schultz podcast. You'll get probably 10 of them. I've done so many podcasts. I don't know why. I just people keep asking me, and I keep going, okay.
Everybody loves you.
Dude, we want to know you're
Yeah.
you're one of the best wrestlers that ever lived. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't people want to talk with you?
Yeah, you're the best wrestler ever, American wrestler, right?
I don't know about that.
You
Aaron
Captain
Klein
Canadian
said-
hero.
What?
Aaron Klein said he'd love a seminar. So earlier on, we talked about how to book a seminar with Mark Schultz. Aaron, I'll message you over the stuff that we talked about earlier, and then when we post this one, it will be in the description. So we'll have all the links from Mark Schultz. So he's in North Carolina. I don't know where are you living now? You're California?
Medford, Oregon.
Oh, you're in Oregon?
Yeah.
That's pretty
Right
far
on the
still. But
California border.
yeah, still pretty cool. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to plug while we got you here?
No, I don't think so.
All right, man. We're gonna wrap it up. It's 11:30 our time. I know it's a little bit earlier for you, but we're over here on the East Coast, so we're
Where
getting
are
past.
you anyway?
And
We're in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, Buffalo. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're all the way across the country, man. Like,
Yeah,
we can't get too much farther away.
yeah.
Not that you go to
How's the
Maine.
weather?
It's actually just snowing right now, but not terrible.
Yeah, last week we got it worse.
Yeah, we had like 6 feet last week.
Yeah.
I know that's a boring subject, but that area is where Mormonism started.
Well, I didn't know that.
I didn't
from
know
New
that
York
either.
City. I'm originally from New York City. I ain't know.
Palmyra, New York,
Man,
and then
Oh,
they went
wow.
to Kirtland, Ohio, and then they went to Independence, Missouri, and they went back to Nauvoo, Illinois, and then Joseph Smith was killed by a mob, and Brigham Young took over, settled the state of Deseret, which is as big as Alaska. That means a cult is controlling 1/5 of the United States. But President Buchanan wasn't having it. He replaced him with a secular governor, sent the military in there. But at one time, the Mormon Church controlled 1/5 of the United States. Not many people know that.
I have heard that before, but only because we had Sean Doherty on. I didn't know that until he told us. Mormons seem like it's not a great thing, and I'm sure we'll have like 10 Mormons contact me right after I get off this podcast. I'm sure my phone's been buzzing most of this podcast, so I know I'm probably getting some heat from some people, but I don't care. That's what you have your heroes on for. They can say whatever they want to say. They can do whatever they want to do. And Mark Schultz, you fulfill one of my childhood dreams. I never thought in my entire life I'd get the opportunity to talk with you. And
Oh well, it's an honor to do your show. Well, send me the link when you're done producing it.
Okay, for sure. I'll send you the live link, and then
I'll put it on all my social media.
yes, sir. Man, I'm gonna say that. I take a picture of that and save it forever.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. I don't know, like it's not too often you get to interview your heroes, and today is like a really good day for me. And
I appreciate
thank you for
that.
giving me
Thank
inspiration when I wrestled between you and the Brands brothers, the Schultz brothers and the Brands brothers. Like, man, that was my entire like high school and college. I just wanted to be like you guys. And I was never
Thank
able to
you.
be as good as you guys, but I gave it my best try, man, and I learned a lot from it.
I respect anybody that tries to wrestle. It takes guts, putting your name and record, self-worth, ego on the line every time. So if you do it, I don't care how little you do it. If you just try it, I got respect for you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. This was Mark Schultz, Olympic
you,
hero, American hero, soon to be Vice President of the United States.
Vote Schultz.
Vote Schultz. With that, We're out of here, Buffalo. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you across the country. Thank you, Canadians. Thank you, Mexicans. Thank you, everyone else that watches. I don't know why we got some people in the Middle East watching, but thank you guys too.
Yep.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
Must be Mike